Baseball lifestyle, it's my lifestyle.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of The Grounds Crew. As always, before we get started, we ask that you make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, smash the like button, share it, do all that good stuff. We appreciate your support. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, do all that good stuff. Big day today in baseball. The first game ever to be played, the first Major League game to be played in Iowa at the Field of Dreams movie site. They built a whole new stadium in the middle of the cornfields for it. It looks amazing. They got the throwback jerseys going. I'm actually very excited for it. I wasn't sure how, because they were going to try and do it, whatever it was, last year.
Yep.
And it didn't work out, obviously, with COVID. And I wasn't sure how it was all going to look, and because it kind of seemed like corny at first, like no pun intended.
Pun all intended.
Pun all intended. But it came out great. They got the throwback uniforms, and I'm very excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, I think it always comes down to, does somebody put in a lot of effort into the design and into the details?
Yep.
It looks like they put a lot of time and attention into the details. They've done a great job. They've marketed it well. Now it's just about going out and do it. I saw either high school, college game.
Yeah, they played. I think it was a high school game on like the actual movie field, which is awesome.
And a kid crushed a grand slam
into the corn.
And
Yeah.
like you see in the outfielder walking into the corn to like bring the ball back, and it's like, this is what it really was.
Yeah,
like this
it was
the
all worth
thing.
it just for that.
Just for that moment. I saw A-Rod did like him walking into the cornfield as like a video on his social.
They had Kevin Costner there yesterday, like just kind of playing ball on the actual field and doing stuff, and like just kind of that just ties everything together and just looked awesome. So super excited about that, and like you said, they've really marketed it well and put it out there in a very cool way and made sure to call back as much as they could to the movie, and I think that's exactly what you needed to do. I really wasn't sure how they were going to kind of go about that, but they've killed it so far.
Yeah, and again, it's just more good stuff that baseball's doing to promote the game and make more excitement.
Yep.
Right? And I think at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing is like, this is a way of being classic, but also a way of not being stuck up about everything. Right? There's history to this field. There's history to what this is. So it plays to the history of the game, but also it's something that is still new. It's still something that's, fun and enjoyable. And this is what we talked about. I forget who we were talking with at the All-Star game, and we were saying, like, how do you make it fun but stay true to the game, right? And I think this is something where you can stay true to the game but enjoy it and have fun.
Because, Field of Dreams is more of it's like a movie that every baseball fan needs to watch, but I would say more often than not, people older than the current generation are more, like, into that movie, and the younger kids are more into The Sandlot or movies like that. So I think this is a good way to kind of like bridge the gap there and kind of give people hey, look, this is a true classic baseball movie that you just have to watch and really like sit down and understand like the meaning behind it and why it was so groundbreaking for the time. It was just they've killed it.
Killed it. Great job.
So while we're on the subject of just legendary moments and things that haven't happened in a while, Adam Wainwright yesterday threw a Maddux, which we haven't seen in a while, which is a complete game with less than 100 pitches.
Which seems like something that should happen more now because of the fact so many guys have so much swing and miss in their bats, right? But still super impressive, right? To go through and get your 27 outs and go to what everything is and be able to do it in less than 100 means that you were throwing, right, less than 4 pitches a batter.
Yep.
Right?
Super efficient.
So ultimately, when you look at that, like, crazy.
Yep.
So super cool. Do you think that that's better than what Corbin Burnes did?
So Corbin Burnes, 10 Ks in a row. Do I think it's better? Yes. And let me tell you why. First off, though, I do kind of. I was torn because I love watching the power pitchers now, and unfortunately, most of those guys make it 6 innings on average with 100 pitches. Listen, they get 12, 13 strikeouts. That's great, but you don't see a lot of complete games anymore. And I personally, as a pitcher, enjoy watching the finesse that goes into doing what Adam Wainwright just did. Like, you truly have to be locked in and super efficient and hitting every single spot and doing all that stuff to get batters out. And like you said, less than on an average 4 pitches per at bat. But what Corbin Burnes did is also insane because the amount of dominance you have to go out there and strike out 10 guys in a row is ridiculous.
And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, he had 15 Ks total in a start. But he got 10 in a row is 3 innings worth of baseball where nobody hit the ball.
Yep.
Like, nobody touched it. So, like, that to me is super, super impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm with you. Like, I think that it's a pick your poison or what's your favorite flavor of which one do you think is more dominant.
Mm-hmm.
Wainwright throwing a Maddux also has to do – his defense picked him up.
Yep.
He put the ball in play. His defense made sure nothing got past him. Like, that's old school baseball at its finest.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is – in the NFL, you always see that the team that switches up to a new way of offense first gets a season or two of outsized gains, right? And then you have to start seeing it like, oh, okay, should we stay with it? So, like, the Chiefs were the first team to go super, super wide, spread out, throw it, have a quarterback who can crush it. Now Buffalo Bills do the same thing. You have all these guys who can do that. So the team that can run the football, a team like Lamar Jackson running the football like crazy and then running for 3,000 yards, the Titans having it, they're winning games because everybody else is built to now beat these high-flying offenses and not the ground and pound. So do you think that pitchers who pitch to contact and get stuff like this are going to start to be outsized value, right? Like, Wainwright's an older pitcher, but look at a guy like Stroman.
Yeah.
Stroman pitches a lot to contact. He's having a really, really good year. He's getting the advantage of a lot of the swing and missing guys' bats. It's just that he's getting even more ground balls.
Right.
The Mets dove even deeper by getting Baez, that their defense is going to be important for them in their infield.
Yep.
Right? We have range. They have Lindor and Baez in the same thing at the same time. It's going to be hard to get a hit on one side of the field. So then Stroman plays up.
Yep.
But Stroman's going to be underrated because he's not the strikeout, flame-throwing guy. He's not going to necessarily make the money because that's not what guys look for.
Right.
So that's why I like the Wainwright thing, just because it looks like he's zigging while everybody else is zagging.
Yep.
Right? So
Well, he's definitely had to adjust his game as he's gotten older, and I think it's good. It's obviously like you're getting things like this, and you have to do a different strategy than the Corbin Burns of the world, who can just fire 98 and then also have this nasty out pitch. Yep.
When Pedro went from being 99 mile an hour to being 93 miles an hour, he had to finesse people more, and he still could.
Yep.
He wasn't as dominant, but he was good.
Right.
But speaking about the pitchers, so when we started this year and we started this podcast, no hitters were like every day.
Yep.
Then we went through the spider tack era, and that got shut down, and now pitching's much more erratic. Having a game like Connor Burns, you see every so often, the 10 strikeouts in a row, that's a part and parcel to guys just trying to swing for the fences all the time now.
Yeah.
But last night, the Red Sox put 20 on the Rays, and pitching's not what it was. And we talked about a couple weeks ago how, hey, arms are going to get more tired, offenses are going to pick up. That's why I like a deal like Schwarber going to them, because all of a sudden these guys' velocities in the back end of your rotation, the guys who were throwing 94, 95, who were okay starters at your 3, 4, 5 spot, are now maybe getting exhausted to the 92, 93 consistently, and now these hitters start to tee off.
Yeah.
And can your offense carry? It's why the Yankees start to look good on the back half of a season.
Right.
They're built to hit the ball. So as the pitching starts to decline due to volume, the hitting starts to succeed and starts to overcome and starts to do more stuff. What's your take on pitching overall for this season? Is it one of the best pitching years, or do you think that it's going to end up being a mediocre thing when all is said and done?
No, I still think it's one of the best pitching years ever. Regardless of, yes, the hitters may be in whatever state they're in, but the pitchers are still executing at an extremely high level. Unfortunately, with Jacob deGrom's injury, he's probably not going to win the Cy Young, but still, the NL Cy Young race is insane. The amount of the guys at the top, Bueller, Zach Wheeler, I was talking about it last night with somebody, like, everybody's got a ton of strikeouts, really solid ERAs. We're talking about lots of no-hitters. And you're seeing guys who may have been kind of towards the back half of their careers starting to kind of figure out different things and getting more confidence. You're talking about like a Lance Lynn. Guy's an older guy, but definitely a candidate for the Cy Young this year. I mean, he's been absolutely dominant. Carlos Rodon had a career resurgence this year. Unfortunately, he's hurt right now. But that duo right there, they're going to take their pitching staff and carry them to the playoffs and deep into the playoffs, I'd imagine. So I think pitching's been huge this year, and we're talking about who's going to be the difference maker in the playoffs. And you look at a lot of the teams who are like most certainly going to be in it. You're going to see like the Brewers. You're going to see the Dodgers. Those guys have top of the line arms that I think are going to be the absolute game changers when it comes to who comes out on top.
And that's why we also said, right, like I've been critical of the Yankees' moves overall because, again, I've stated I feel like they made regular season moves that will make them better in a regular season. But when you get to the best games, your pitching is what's going to be the thing. And they didn't do anything to upgrade pitching substantially, and now they have way too many bats.
Yeah.
And I feel like everybody who acquired pitchers set themselves up to win.
But their moves definitely are helping them. You can see it right now. They're going to have a really good shot at that wild card, and who knows, maybe they do something miraculous and win the division. But I agree with you. I'm definitely – I know they're getting Severino back, but he's always a question mark, especially after the amount of time he hasn't played. So I guess that's kind of their thought process, like the Mets and not getting anybody with the assumption that Syndergaard's coming, but you never know. But I mean, listen, their pickup of Gallo and Rizzo has definitely paid off so far.
For sure.
But definitely curious how Severino does. He should be back within the next week or so. So big question mark there.
Big question mark, and we'll see.
Yeah. And also kind of moved for the playoffs. Fernando Tatis. He hurt his shoulder again. I guess he resubluxed it or something like that. But the Padres seem like they're done with this whole shoulder thing. They don't want it to keep happening. So it looks like they're trying to move him to center field in an effort to kind of just preserve the health there and just assume that he's not going to make as many diving plays. And there's just less opportunity for him to constantly be injuring
on
it.
the ground and hitting it and banging on it.
So it looks like they're moving Cronenworth over to shortstop and Frazier slots in there at second. And when they first made the Frazier move, it was like, well, where's he going to go? And then all of a sudden, it's all playing out correctly.
So this then becomes my question. Is this a permanent move?
It is a great question. It is a great question.
Because you made these trades and you made these moves and you made all this stuff, and you now have what you would assume is an infield that makes sense. So Frazier at second, right? Like Cronenworth, whatever you're going to think he's going to be, even if he's just average at shortstop, to keep Fernando Tatis in the lineup. Is this the permanent move because of the fact that his health is shown that it might not hold up?
That is a great question. And something else that I noticed as well that hasn't been, I guess, maybe I'm sure they considered it, but it hasn't been done yet, moving Machado over to shortstop. Also a great option. So they have a lot of people that could play in there right now. Definitely curious if they decide to stick him out there long term. I'm sure they'll kind of be contingent on how he plays and if he's actually comfortable with that.
He's a freak athlete. He's going to kill him.
Exactly. I'm not really concerned about it. I saw some of his practice video and he's robbing home runs already and doing all that stuff. Not really concerned about it. I think if anything, it opens opportunity for them to have Cronenworth, Frazier, and Tatis in the lineup at all times.
It makes their team vastly better, especially in a National League where you don't have a DH and you can't just stick somebody there all the time.
Yep.
At least for this season, you have a situation where you want his bat in the lineup as often as you can. This allows them to keep all of these guys and maximize team and maximize at bats. Love the move.
Yep.
And again, AJ Preller just looks even more now like, we're all out here playing checkers and he's playing chess.
Absolutely.
He's anticipating, he's moving his face of the game shortstop off his position, and nobody's batting an eye. Could you imagine going back in the day and them moving Derek Jeter? Right now, they needed to move Jeter multiple times because he was a horrible shortstop, and they just never did because that's been that. Do you look at this as Preller's just got cojones? Do you look at this as the analytics can justify it enough and players are more bought in on? where they're going to be. Like, Tatis has his money. Does he care where he is?
No, probably not. And also, I was reading this in an article. This was a plan in previous. They were trying to get Lindor in 2019, 2020, and this was already like, hey, Tatis, you're going out center field, and
Yes.
we're bringing in Francisco Lindor. So I'm sure this conversation has been had before.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even be surprised if that winter he went out and took fly balls anyway, just for fun. So, yeah, I completely agree with you. Love the move. I think it's great for the team, and hopefully he stays healthy and they keep kicking there.
Who else needs to move off their position in the league? If you could go and you could say, hey, this guy plays X, but he should be playing Y, right? Who are people that you think that you look around at? Like, we've joked around Brian McCann might look better at first base than
James
he does
McCann.
or James McCann. Why?
Every
single time.
Every time.
I'm like, my brain goes like back into.
Listen, Brian McCann's a goat.
Back into the early 2000s every 5 minutes. So why like McCann, we've said, like, looks better at first base, like that actually might be a future position for the dude. Are there other guys that you look at in the league and you're like, man, I wish this guy would be something else? Partner technical difficulties.
I'm moving around. It's a good question. I mean, I guess you could say Dom Smith, if we're staying with the Mets. He also probably shouldn't be in left field, but he's played average there.
Well, no, the analytics now say he's an above average left fielder. He
good.
gets the balls, he runs, he does everything else. So, like, he's there. I'm with you, though. I think especially as a lefty, right, him being at first base and how lefties play at first base, I actually think that he would be a better first baseman overall for the Mets if he was able to be there. But that's just not possible with what they have in Alonso. But there are always guys that you look at and you're like, man, I wish that this guy, like, didn't. Because one of the guys, again, staying in New York that I would love to see him move to a different position is Gleyber Torres.
Yeah.
Right? Because I am not, like, every Yankees fan I know is telling me how Gleyber was an MVP candidate level player and he was all this stuff. And the guy who he was comped against early in his career was Ahmed Rosario. And they were both right there in the same conversation of the top shortstops in the minors and all this stuff. Ahmed came up and immediately had to play shortstop in New York with the pressures and things that being a New York shortstop even have. And Gleyber got to be off position, and he got to just focus on his hitting. Now you've seen Gleyber's hitting just go off a cliff because he's having to play shortstop every day. I'd love to see Gleyber as a guy who moves off. And whether that's a left field position or that's third base, second base, something else.
It's probably one of those, if I had to guess. Especially if he ever gets moved to a new team. I wouldn't imagine he plays shortstop unless there's a dramatic change in defense. I'm not sure who I could think of off the top of my head that I definitely would want to move, but I'd imagine it's somebody at like the shortstop or maybe the third base position that maybe needs to move over to first. Like Vlad, early in his career, they moved him off third immediately because he just wasn't mobile enough there, and I think it's been great for him. He's obviously having an MVP quality year. Unfortunately, it's not going to be an MVP year because Ohtani exists, but that was a great move in my opinion when they did that. But yeah, I can't think of anybody off the top of my head at this moment. I don't know. That's a good question. I'm definitely going to look into that after the show.
So other historical things.
Yes. Miguel Cabrera is almost about to hit 500 home runs.
So Miggy's an easy Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That was my question for you. Yes, I think he's definitely a Hall of Famer.
Because I think that people have even forgotten now as time has moved on how good Cabrera really is.
Yeah, especially early on.
My other craziness is that this is a dude who from 2004 through truly full season 2016 was a 30-plus home run guy, right? So you're looking at a nice like 12, 13-year stretch where he was a 30-plus home run guy. 500 home runs is so many home runs.
Yeah.
I don't know how in the craziness that we got to that 500 was the line of demarcation for Hall of Fame. Because Miggy's has been a stone cold lead pipe lock as a Hall of Famer since 2016.
Easily, yeah.
So like at that point in time, what is even 500? Because
I mean, honestly, you could probably even go earlier than that.
Oh, yeah.
As of 2012, he led the league with 44, and that was after 9 years in a row of hitting 30+.
Yep.
And also during that time, you're looking at a time when him and Pujols both existed in the league, absolutely mashing home runs.
And I think the thing about Miggy that people really, really I think he doesn't get enough credit. His career batting average is .311, and that's with the fact for the last 5 years he struggled to be over 300. Since 2017, you got a 249, 299, 282, 250, 255. This is his worst year of his career. He's 38. I get that, right? Like, you've been playing a lot. He came up. He was 20. So he's been in the game a really, really long time.
Yep.
He's still over a 700 OPS as a guy playing every single day. He's a Hall of Famer, easy peasy. My question is, what position do you think of him as?
Ooh.
Because I think that's the key difference for me in terms of where is his place in all-time greatness. Because in my mind, I think about him as a third baseman.
Yeah, then I don't know when he made the switch over. I'd imagine it was later on with Detroit.
Had to have been much later in his career. And then he was DHing a little bit more. He wasn't doing. But Miggy also started as an outfielder with the Marlins, and then switched over to third base, which is the reverse of what typically happens.
Yeah,
you don't usually have outfielders come in and now he's at first because again he's older. If he's a third baseman, where does he exist as all-time third basemen?
I think he's definitely up there. I know I've seen a ton of interviews with different pitchers and stuff, and they always say that he's one of the hardest outs they've ever
His hit
faced.
tool is unreal.
Even later on in his career, he's just one of, if not the most professional hitter there is.
His hit tool is disgusting.
It's ridiculous.
He had some 340, almost 350 batting average seasons. He led the league. He was Triple Crown guy multiple times. This is maybe the I don't want to say the best hitter at third base ever, but tell me the better third baseman with the bat lifetime.
I don't know. I would definitely put him in top 5 easily.
Who you got above him? Just off top of dome, right? Do you think he's better? Why am I?
I'm bringing up just
A-Rod.
So A-Rod to me is a shortstop.
Yeah.
He moved to third base because New York would riot and burn the place down if they touched Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
And then he became a Gold Glove third baseman because he had to cover so much extra ground to protect the later year Derek Jeter from embarrassing himself in the hole.
I'm gonna bring up ESPN's list of top 10. So they have
the official ESPN list.
Yeah. This is not endorsed by Baseball Lifestyle.
This is not the Grounds Crew list.
Okay. So
Start,
they have. I'm gonna give you just who their number 1 is. They have Mike Schmidt as number 1, which isn't. I don't hate that.
So again, if you have Mike Schmidt as number 1, then you are officially saying that A-Rod was a shortstop and not a third baseman.
Yeah, his stats aren't crazy. George Brett at 2. Eddie Matthews. Or Chipper Jones at 4.
So Chipper Jones is the guy who I was just thinking about.
Yeah.
Miggy's better than Chipper.
Yes.
So I'm at the point now where
Chipper's career stats: 303, 2,700 hits, 468 home runs, 1,600 ribbies with a 930 OPS.
Miggy's a better hitter and he's a better player lifetime than Chipper was. Now Chipper's a Hall of Famer, right? Chipper's great.
Yep.
I'm here for Chipper is absolutely a stud. So they've got Mike Schmidt. Mike Schmidt's career batting average is 267. His career OPS is 908. He definitely was a heavy power hitter for a long time. Multiple 40 home run seasons. He played a career that was relatively the same length. You can't even count his age 22 season because he only got 13 games played. The next year, he immediately came out with 18. Then was 36, 38, 38, 38, 21, 45, 48, 31, 35, 40, 36, 33, 37, 35. And he had 35 as a 37-year-old in 1987. I think that Miggy's got to be in the conversation of.
He is easily top 3. Just looking off of base stats right now, he is easily top 3, if not 2 or 1.
And that's my thing. Like, so what are you looking at him as, and what position are you gonna put him as? Because if you look at him as a third baseman, a lot of people will say, "Hey, defense matters so much in terms of what you have at that position."
Does he have a Gold Glove?
Miggy does not have Gold Gloves.
Okay, Can I also just point out, Baseball Reference has him, as soon as he went to Detroit, playing 143 games in 2008 at first base. So I would say
he's been a first baseman
longer.
That's why I was kind of trying to like recall like when the change was. So it's been a long time. So you could even say he might go in as a first baseman.
So if he goes in as a first baseman, then he's not number 1, right?
Yeah.
Because his power numbers then don't show up the same as other first basemen. My question is, where do we put him? Because the guy who is low-key maybe the greatest first baseman ever is Pujols.
Probably, yeah.
And we're
oh, okay. Here we go. ESPN has him ranked as number 5 first baseman all time.
Okay. And who is above him?
Jimmy Fox, Albert Pujols, Stan Musial, and Lou Gehrig.
So Stan and Lou are not better than Pujols. And
it's a different time. There's
I don't care about different time. I don't care about bias. I don't care about anything else. There is not a world where Albert Pujols is not the best first baseman in history. Again, we've said on this show before, during his first 10 years versus Mike Trout's first 10 years, Albert Pujols was a better player. Guys, Pujols was better than Trout. And we're trying to say Trout might be the best player ever. He's in that conversation. We are neglecting Pujols. This is blaspheming. This is out of control. I'm not here for it. I refuse. So the rookie year, age 21, Albert Pujols hit 37 home runs and 47 doubles. His OPS was over 1,000 as a 21-year-old. Guys, Tatis, all these guys, yeah, they were up at 19 and 20. They had experience. His first year, come on the scene, hold my beer, batted .329. He didn't bat below 300 until he was, drum roll, 31 years old. He batted .299.
How many years later is that?
He only had a .906 OPS that year.
That's how many seasons in?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. His 11th year in the league is the first time he didn't bat over 300.
That's nuts.
Guys, his career batting average has dropped to 297 on the back of the fact that he's got a 198 this year, a 224 the year before that, a 244, a 245, a 241. Like, Pujols has been old for a while now. In 2015, he was an all-star. He was an all-star. And he didn't need to be an all-star. He had a 787 OPS that year. He hasn't been the 1,000 OPS guy since that year. But, like, when he was his best self, there's nobody who you can tell me was better than Pujols. Absolutely not. And then, yeah, this is my point of why I hate baseball's like Hall of Fame credentials. Mm-hmm. He's then had to play a decade of time to get to the accumulation stats, right? Because he had to accumulate more seasons. 2015, when he had a 787 OPS, he still hit 40 home runs, but only 22 doubles. He just wasn't jogging out of the box anymore.
Yep.
Right? The home run power was still there. He's still cranking shots. So he's at 676 home runs. I don't know where anybody can tell me that there's a better guy. And, like, I get that, like, there's a historical reference of Lou Gehrig and all that stuff. Guys, man, the 10-year domination that Pujols put on his resume is better than anybody else's.
Yep.
Like, I don't even think that the 10-year run Barry Bonds went on is really a better run than what you had with Pujols.
Those are definitely comparable, and we can make that a whole separate podcast.
And that we're gonna have to run that one back. We're gonna have to run that one back.
But that's what I was saying to you. The Miggy thing with him, you get to like 2012, and he's already had something that you could call a Hall of Fame career. So, and that's only like half of his career in. like you were saying with Poole. So
which again goes back to I hate the accumulation stats because the reality is a player that I could match up in that time frame against Miggy and against Pujols is a guy like David Wright. And David Wright during a 10-year run was a multi-time Gold Glover from his age 21 season until his age 30 season, right? So in a 10-year span, David Wright was 14, 27, 26, 30, 33, 29. Then he started to drop off because of injuries.
Yep.
But, like, he was a 5-time consecutive All-Star, Gold Glove player. Here's a guy who had a great run of being one of the better. He'll never be a Hall of Famer.
Nope.
Like, never be a Hall of Famer.
He'll just be a great player.
But there was a moment in time where it was him and Alex Rodriguez at third base battling for who's the best third baseman in the game.
Absolutely.
And that's just where, I to me, like, you lose so many all-time greats because they only play 10, 11 years in baseball. Because if you don't play till you're 40, it's hard to get to the accumulation numbers to achieve Hall of Fame status.
Right.
And I think that MLB's got to separate themselves from that and go, what was peak dominance? At peak dominance, nobody can lay claim that they were a better player than Pujols.
And then there's some guys, like, just using this the NFL because they just had their induction. There are guys who have, like, 8-year careers and get in the Hall of Fame?
Yep. Again, the
I know the longevity in the sport is, like, looked at differently.
Oh, but the two guys that I'll give you in recent memory who have made it to the Hall of Fame, who don't have careers that are substantial, is Terrell Davis, running back from the Denver Broncos, has a 2,000-yard season on his career. That dude played 6 years.
Wow.
But when he was at his peak, he was more than I think anybody had ever seen. The other guy was Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner was playing in arena football and bagging groceries. And then he, late in his life, became the quarterback for the at the time St. Louis Rams. And
making a movie about him.
And Kurt Warner then wins a whole bunch, but then gets popped out, goes to the Giants, is a good player for the Giants. The Giants start off mediocre, so they bench Kurt Warner for Eli Manning. Kurt Warner then goes to the Arizona Cardinals and goes to another Super Bowl. And goes to another Super Bowl with a completely different team. But he didn't make his starting role, 1999 Kurt Warner, was 28. He played from 28 to 38. In that time, his QB record was only 67 and 49. But the dude at the time that he played, his first year as a starting quarterback in the NFL, 4,353 yards, 41 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. The next year, he missed a bunch of games due to injury. The team went 8-3. He threw for 3,500 and 21 and 18. He had a little regression. Then he threw 4,800 yards, 36 touchdowns. Then he had a bad year. They moved on from him. He had injuries, everything else. Had one season with the Giants. Then goes to Arizona, and his last 3 years in Arizona, he was around a 4,000-yard-a-year quarterback with 30 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, and they won a whole bunch of games. The dude's career, his peak at the time versus who he was against, he was the best quarterback in the NFL. He was Tom Brady good at winning games when he was in the NFL. But he only did it, his real peak was 5 or 6 years. And that's the point. The NFL looks at, were you dominant? If yes, you have a shot. Baseball, what if a guy is the best player? Like, if Fernando Tatis, right, puts up another 6 years where he's 330, 30 home runs, killing it, crushing it, and then he has a tragic injury, he never goes to the Hall of Fame. But his numbers are going to end up in a bubble, multi-time All-Star, all these different things, all this different stuff. If Mike Trout's career is over today, where do you put him?
Oh, he's a Hall of Famer.
How many seasons is he in?
He is in year 11. Okay, and this was my follow-up question, and I'm glad that you saw that I just looked up Mike Trout.
Yep. Great segue.
Great segues. I feel like people have been saying for a while he's already a Hall of Famer. Now, I'm curious, at what point did he reach that?
Yes.
How early? Now, he's been an All-Star 9 times, 9 out of the 11 years.
Yeah.
And it was like in a row. He was MVP twice, MVP 3 times, I should say. Rookie of the Year, Silver Sluggers, all this stuff. I would say, and this is just for me, I could see people saying he was already a Hall of Famer in year like 7 or 8.
In year 7 or 8, was that his third MVP?
Yes, his 8th year was his third MVP.
So after year 8, he's an MVP. Or he's a Hall of Famer.
His 9th year, excuse me. His 9th year.
So after his 9th year, he's a Hall of Famer. Right?
Yeah.
Why is it different? But so here's the thing, right? Like, why
now,
is
granted, he also has like ridiculous stats in those
times. For sure. I'm with you. But like, why is it then that the next level down from a guy like him is you have to play 20 years?
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Right? Because Pujols probably was a Hall of Famer after 2010 then.
Yeah, so that was exactly what I was going to say. His, like, if you look at it just like, we're just going off home runs because I think it's an easy stat to work with. He has very similar numbers to like Pujols and Cabrera from year 2 to year like 8, 9.
Yeah.
Just 30, 27, 36, 41, 30. Like,
what's the difference with Pujols? Also Rookie of the Year, also a 3-time MVP, has 2 Gold Gloves, 6-time Silver Slugger, NLCS MVP, also 2 World Series rings.
Mm. And that's by year what?
I don't even remember by year what, but I mean he won all his World Series with St. Louis. So ultimately you're looking at his last year in St. Louis was 2011. So from 2001 to 2011, he won 3 MVPs. So he's been a Hall of Famer that long. Yeah. So what's then the drop off? What's then the line? Like
when then becomes the demarcation of my stats were good enough in my first half?
When was Miggy a Hall of Famer? When was Miguel Cabrera a Hall of Famer?
By 2012. No, actually, I'll give it. Ready? 2013 because he won a Triple Crown.
Because he's a 2-time MVP, 11-time All-Star, 4 batting titles, has a World Series ring. He has been a MVP since he's 30, or he's been a Hall of Famer since he's at least 30.
Yeah.
So that was 9 years ago. So like the 500 home runs doesn't even make sense. And if anybody ever had a conversation about Miggy's not a Hall of Famer, well, you're drunk. Like you couldn't even go there. Mm-hmm. And if first baseman didn't hit 500 home, no, stop. He dominated the league for a decade. If anybody dominates, if you're the best player in baseball for one season, I have to think that you're close to Hall of Fame status. Because there's so many players who swing the bat. To be the MVP of the league once, if you then have borderline all-star numbers 5 years before and 5 years after, how are you not? Because there's guys there's guys who are in the Hall of Fame who were worse players. Mm-hmm. Always, never won MVPs, never won Cy Young awards, but accumulated stats. The guy, one of the guys who comes to mind, who's just like one of the Balco guys, and I don't remember his career like perfectly, is Rafael Palmiero, right? Like Rafael Palmiero is somebody who everybody was like, oh, this guy's gonna be a Hall of Famer. Like he's close, he's in that ballpark, and then it comes out that he has all this stuff. That guy is a 4-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glover, no World Series, no anything else, but he hit 560 home runs. Mm-hmm. Because he played from the time he was, and this is all out of whack, he played from 21 to 40. Bro, you accumulated the numbers. And again, he hit 18 home runs the last year he played baseball. But when I look at his numbers, he never was the super dominating guy. 1998, 1999, when we know he was taking steroids and we know guys were juicing the ball out of there, he hit 43 and 47.
Yep.
But
and he was an all-star those 2 years too.
And those were 2 of his all-star years, right? Yeah. But when you look at those numbers comparable to who he was against, you weren't better than Mark McGwire. You weren't better than Sammy Sosa. Right? And there were other guys, like even I think like Ken Griffey was more home runs than him at that point in time. Like, so Palmiero to me, no, like He's not, but he played so long that he's got better numbers than Miggy from a home run stance. He's never been a better player than Miguel Cabrera. And I hate that guy is considered in that wheelhouse just because he has these accumulation stats, but he never dominated the league.
Yeah.
You dominate the league at any point in time. That's what brings me back to a guy like David Wright. When you look at peak David Wright, he was winning the Gold Glove every other year. He finished second in the MVP voting multiple times. Like, that dude is a. They were right here on the cusp of a World Series. Like, you're this close to, you dominated the league at a moment, but he has no hope. And Rafael Palmiero, who wasn't as dominating at his position, at his stuff, at his time, is closer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's unfortunately that it's just baseball's Hall of Fame thing is more wide in what people actually look at as what encompasses the Hall of Famer.
Do you agree with it?
I definitely like the thinking more of, hey, if you had a shorter career but you were a god during that time, I think it should be looked at more. I think if let's say if Ohtani was just an average pitcher and hit 40 home runs for 5 years but had a 3.2 ERA,
yep,
I think you could absolutely consider it because it's unheard of what he was doing in that light of being able to do both things. But let's say his career ended up being 7 years and he did that, and he does what he's doing right now. I think you should at least look at it and say this is a very compelling argument. This guy is a Hall of Famer because he did what nobody else could do.
If he's able to be some semblance of now, if he's able to be, let's just go around, a sub-4 ERA pitcher, right? And he's able to be a 270, 30-plus home run hitter through his age 31 season. Is Ohtani a Hall of Famer?
So how many years would that be?
So this is year 3 technically for him, right? So this year would be in, and he's age 26. So it's 5 more years, plus this year, plus what he did 2 years ago. Because what he did 2 years ago even was what we talked about. The reason why I felt he's a guy who was going to make a leap was in 2018 when he first came to the league, he had a 925 OPS. Then in year 2, he had 850 OPS. Last year was coming back from the injury, so 2019 he missed time because of the injury, and then 2020 he was coming back from it. Right. So you had that lull in between those two moments. Those years still will be accumulations. You're going to look at that if his 4 years in the league, just from a hitting standpoint, he's going to have an 850 plus OPS in multiple of them, and he already in 4 years as an MLB player, he's got 85 home runs.
Yep.
So he's hitting, if he's going to finish this year, let's say he's going to get close to 90 career home runs in what amounts to 3 full seasons. So in 3 full seasons, he's averaging 30 home runs a season. If for the next 5 years, he's 30 to 40, right? That's going to give him another 150 home runs. He'll be over 200 home runs, and he'll be a pitcher who gets close to what in strikeouts, what in wins, what in ERA. That's my question. That's borderline the domination.
Yeah. And you know what I think it is too? There's so many stats that go into what people see as a Hall of Famer that people could just start nitpicking at things. Like I was talking to somebody about Ohtani being an MVP this year.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, listen, he's doing what nobody's doing. Well, he could get his average up a little bit. Oh, he could do this. What do you mean? Look at it as a whole. This is ridiculous, regardless of if his average is 260 or 280. I think that also has something to do with it, and not even just for Miggy, but in general, is that there are so many things for people to say, oh, this guy was better, so he shouldn't be in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we've said, and Ohtani's batting average continues to drop a little bit, and how much of it is him getting exhausted from doing both things? How much is it that he's had to carry the team because Trout's been out, Rendon's been out, Walsh has been out, right? How much has it been that the All-Star game, how much attention was placed on him that just wore him out and got him hey, everything's on set. he's going to finish this season with a 900-plus OPS and a potentially sub-3 ERA. He's the MVP of this season, and that comes back to being my point. He's going to be the MVP. Next year, let's assume he has protection because he's got Trout in the lineup, Rendon in the lineup, Walsh in the lineup, more fully. Mm-hmm. If they can get a pitcher on that team to go and support these guys.
They drafted 22 of them, so.
They've got to be in a conversation that they should win some next year. He might be just as good as a pitcher, and his other counting stats might be better. Because he's going to get more fastballs. You can't go off speed to him. Because if you walk a guy, you got Trout coming up. If you walk a guy, you got Walsh coming up. Trout's already on, right? Like, hey, like, whatever it is these guys are going to protect him and offer him that he's going to get to see more of the pitches he likes.
Yeah, I think I definitely could see it, especially in his most recent few games. You could see his swings have been a little, like, more wild. He hasn't had as good command of the zone. He's at the plate. Yeah, I think he's getting a little exhausted. He kind of hadn't hit any home runs recently. He hit one last night.
Yep.
So he's up to 38 now, still leading the league. I think he's definitely getting a little exhausted. I could definitely see that, especially with his plate discipline. But it's still unheard of what he's been doing.
And that's why, for me, if Ohtani's able to achieve this in the modern game for 5 seasons after this, and he's even 80% of the player he is now, you got to start having a conversation of potential Hall of Fame, because what I look at as Hall of Fame is this person needs to be immortalized and remembered.
Yep.
Right? And if you need to immortalize and remember a moment in time, which is the thing, right? Hall of Fame is because no matter what happens to the other stats, the other numbers, you're who you were as a player, right? You'll always exist in a stat sheet, but who are we going to promote? Hey, do you remember this guy? And the reality is that you start looking at it, you have to bring up Shohei Ohtani if he does this for 5 seasons more.
Yeah, 20 years on the line when people bring their kids to the Hall of Fame and you walk past this plaque, oh, who is Shohei Ohtani? Oh, well, for 5 years, baseball was in wonder because this guy did this.
Yeah, like we remember Babe Ruth, and it's like we're gonna not do it with this other guy who did it better in a harder era. Like and that's where for me it's like we got to figure this out. We got to figure out how do you recognize that we're trying to immortalize a person because the history of the game needs it.
Absolutely.
So the last little tidbit I'll leave you with, because this is a Mets podcast sometimes too, is Juan Soto last night playing against the Mets put up a little Instagram post of himself standing and looking up into the stands at Citi Field, and the Big Apple is in the back. And he essentially writes that I can't do this alone. The let the chips fall where they may. He hashtags New York, future, and dream. He's got 3 years of arbitration left, I believe.
Yep.
And he is a young man. Is he coming to New York?
In 3 years or next year?
Is he coming to New York next year?
Well, I'd imagine we're going to have an opening in right field based on numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Mike. Okay, so we did this last podcast. We're going to do another one. You want to trade for Juan Soto?
Everything that I offered for Trout.
Minus the two
first-round picks
yes.
that I'm actually not allowed to trade in baseball.
Which is bull, but we'll talk about that later.
Yes, I do the same thing.
Same trade for Juan Soto.
And the reason why I do it for Juan versus I would do the same trade for a guy like Trout is that Juan's 22. Trout's 31.
And what's the contract for Soto? So
the contract for Soto is everything when you get to it. Well, the question is, are they going to buy out the arbitration years like they do with a guy like Tatis, and his contract actually only ends up working out to be that he's making $30 million a year?
I think so. I know a lot of people were kind of like on the fence about Tatis's because the yearly was lower, but he got his longevity and whatever. I actually like that, especially for like Steve Cohen being like, hey, this is financially makes more sense for us. We can go sign more people because our will be under cap. If they did that, yes, I'm all for give Soto his money long term, less per year.
Yeah,
super down.
So I'm going 10 years, right? $300 million. 10 years, $350 million. I don't think that's he'd be age 32.
I think his bat commands more money than Lindor's did.
His contract is not like his defense is not Mike Trout.
Sure, that's fine.
So
I'm
like
not saying
my thing is
that's why it's not going to be 400.
Because again, what's Tatis?
Tatis is what? Oh goodness, I don't remember. It's like he gets like 24 million.
$330 million, 14 years.
Yeah.
So again, my deal's better.
Yeah.
He's 14-year deal. I'm a 10-year deal. So Juan Soto theoretically on a 10-year deal gets to double dip again too.
Yeah, he'll be 32.
He'd be 32 if he's still in prime of his career. Again, you're looking at a guy like Trout now. You say that Juan Soto's a guy who moves to first base or moves to DH and just hits in his back half of his life. Mm-hmm. So then you're talking that Soto is going to be in a situation where he gets to double dip. Yeah, 10 years, $35 million a year, like $350 for sure. And his agent would have to consider that because what he's going to make next year is under $10 million.
Yep.
I just want to point out the Nationals in no way would ever trade Soto.
Absolutely, no way.
Nope.
So then this becomes a question. Is he going to the Yankees? Because Juan's Dominican. And for those who are here who don't understand New York, right, if he's in the Bronx or Queens and he's a Dominican dude, he's got his life is here. His people are here. Like from a being able to culturally integrate and have enjoyment and find the foods and the culture and the things that you want, it exists here for him.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why he enjoys coming to New York, period.
Listen, he said the Big Apple. He didn't say Citi Field.
Facts, which is where we're now getting to. The Yankees don't currently have a need for a right fielder unless they traded that right fielder for pitching. I'm just going to leave the episode at that. I'm going to walk away.
As always, Bill wants to get rid of Aaron Judge. Guys, thanks for listening. Let us know what you thought of the podcast. Let us know what you thought of the Field of Dreams game, all that good stuff. Again, make sure you like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode.
Appreciate you guys.
Baseball lifestyle, it's my lifestyle.